This is not an effing sales pitch. For those of you that are regular viewers of this channel, you know that we put out content trying to give you all the information you might need in order to move to Northern Nevada. And today what we're gonna do is I brought on our buyer's agent, Sydney Lessinger, who many of you are starting to meet now for those of you that have showed up here in person. And we want to explain to you some of the information that you need to know in order to make good educated decisions when you're coming here. And the reason we brought Sydney on today is because she's the one that typically is gonna take you out on that tour, show the information you need. And what's funny is that I think people have this misconception about what we're gonna provide or what we're gonna do for you. And I think people have gotten so used to people just giving them the hard sales pitch and just saying, hey, let's go do this, that they're not exactly sure what to expect from us. So what we wanna do today is let you know what to expect and how things will go if you really are considering a move to Northern Nevada and information you want to look at. So when we do this now, and the way things have changed since this NAR lawsuit has gone into place, when people are reaching out to us, when people are calling us, how do we want this process to start for them?
I think the biggest thing is figuring out, getting people familiarized with the area, especially if people are coming from out of state, because I think Reno surprises people. Because when you Google us, depending on what you're looking for, you're not getting the full picture and the full scope of what Reno and Northern Nevada honestly as a whole has to offer you. We have such a variety of homes, types of properties, ages of properties, different types of areas, different types of neighborhoods and styles and feels that when you just Google homes for sale in Reno, it isn't going to give you the full scope of what we actually have available to you.
Well, and it's interesting you say that too, because I tell agents that I know around the country that we deal with things here in varieties of horse properties with wells and septic tanks, all the way to high-rise condos downtown. The way real estate is sold and the way our transactions operate here are not the same as they are in other areas. So when people come here from California, or we just drove some people around from Alaska, and they're like, well, this is how we do it where we are. Well, that's not how we do things here. And so when someone physically shows up and we're getting ready to show them houses, in today's world, what is the first thing we've got to do with them?
The first thing we have to do is what's called an exclusive buyer representation agreement, which basically now is a mandatory document that the state of Nevada has always had, but it wasn't mandatory until the National Association of Realtors lawsuit completed.
Right.
And basically what went on with that is it's basically a listing agreement, but for buyers. Right. And when you meet somebody for the first time, it is a difficult document sometimes to discuss and talk about because it feels like a contract. And in some ways it is, but having that feels a little bit forced. And some people, it makes them very nervous. They're like, oh my gosh, whoa, what is this?
Right.
And for the most part, when you sit down and actually talk to people about it and explain kind of what it's for, the purpose that it serves, it hasn't been an issue or anything like that, but it is a change for a lot of people, seeing as it is technically a new document for us here in Nevada.
Right. So for those of you that might not know what we're talking about, in most of my career, if someone wanted to see a house, I could literally just meet them at a house, show them a house, and off we went. And now in today's world, we cannot show houses just to anyone anymore. And there are some pros and cons to that. But when you're explaining this document to people and kind of letting them know what it is and how it's going to work for them, especially, for example, we just had 2 people come in this week that are going to move here after the first of the year. And for now, they're just trying to learn areas and neighborhoods. And we'll talk about some of the things that we want people to know when they make those trips here. But how are you explaining this document and why do they need to know what actually it does?
With the buyer representation agreement, obviously now it is a required document before we walk into property. And especially if you're going to be here for just kind of a short-term trip, we choose the expiration date that is agreed upon between me and the person I'm sitting across from. And you're not locked into anything, especially with us, in terms of if that documentation was an expiration out a little bit further, maybe a month or 2, and for whatever reason you did not want to be part of it anymore, we'll let you out of it. It is a mutual agreement between the 2 of us, and it's not as locked in and as serious as it comes across at first when you first look at this document.
Yeah, because we want people that want to work with us. And our whole point of all this channel is really to provide people information so that they can make an educated decision that when they are ready and they've raised their hand to move here, that they know what to expect from us. And so I agree with you. That document literally can be for one house, for one day, for one weekend, or it can be set up for 6 months, depending on how people want to work on it with us. The other thing that it now does is if you're seeing listings that we're sending you in the mail or you're looking online or you're on the internet, it used to be that the sellers were offering out a commission that was posted right in the MLS. And that is no longer there anymore. So when you're out seeing houses, you don't know if that seller is offering out some sort of compensation. In most cases, in the 4 or 5 months now that we've been doing this, it hasn't really changed so much. You really just write into your offer. Most sellers realize that buyers, because of affordability issues and other things, are going to ask for some sort of compensation to help pay for their realtor, but it's sort of all financed into the price. And so I think sometimes buyers get concerned because we do have to put that information into this agreement. It is not a binding be all end all, you know, it's either take it it or leave it kind of situation. And again, it's being able to have that communication because again, we all have to work together to be able to provide you the level of service that you want. And especially for people that are moving here, that maybe when they come, it's the first time they've ever been here.
Right.
And so with seeing that, like for example, again, we had people from California and from Alaska. Had either one of them been here before?
They have both been a couple of times, more so to Lake Tahoe than to Reno as a whole, which is honestly common. Most people that are coming here for either Mount Rose Ski Resort, going up to Lake Tahoe. They're not necessarily here for Reno. Not that Reno's a bad place to vacation. I mean, we've got a whole lot going on, but more often than not, they're not super familiar with Reno as a city. Right.
And it's kind of funny too, because when you travel to cities, a lot of times, whether you're going there on a business trip or a vacation, it's very different than when you start looking at a place to live in. Yep. And so when we start there, the number one thing I always try to explain to people, we're trying to figure out when that trip you're here are neighborhoods that can work for you and price points that you can afford comfortably to be in. And so how do you start that process with people?
Depending on people's familiarity level with Reno is get them in the car and I drive them. Physically drive them around various neighborhoods, different price points, different areas, different styles of homes. I try to get them as familiar as possible with as much as possible in as short a period of time as possible because you just need to experience it firsthand. And I think the best way to do that is to be in the car with somebody who lives here, works here, has been here for a long time, and to ask questions during that time.
Well, and a lot of times when they're here, the nice part is at that point they know there is no pressure to buy a home.
Right.
They're here for a few days, maybe, sometimes only here for a day or two, but it's really just getting them familiar for if their price point is $800,000, what you can expect for that price point and what parts of town you can choose from in order to make that work. Most people, it seems like lately that we're working with, their time frame of when they need to get here isn't as critical as if someone like, for example, if you were coming here for a job and you had to be here at a certain time frame.
Yeah, it's a different ballgame.
The pace gets picked up. And sometimes for those people, they might want to rent for 6 months prior to buying because they just want to get familiar and just get here first. So we've helped some people do that. We do property management as well. So if sometimes somebody might need a rental, depending on if you need a house or an apartment, there's different ways we can help people with that. But the other thing that people ask sometimes about is cost of living here. And of course, depending on where you're coming from, we can be seen as expensive or cheaper. How does that come up a lot?
Sometimes, I think more often than not, especially with close proximity to California, we do get a lot of out-of-state Californians coming here. Right. And more often than not, we are cheaper than California in a lot of different areas. A couple of people from the Midwest, it's a little bit different for them. Obviously, we're going to be a little bit more expensive, but it's all going to depend on where you come from and what you're used to seeing.
Whether you're someone moving here that's maybe retiring and your kids are grown, versus someone that has younger kids that it's important for them to figure out schools and education. An older person might be more concerned with healthcare. We've tried to do topics and videos about many things. I know we have a great cost of living video that kind of compares costs of more housing, because typically housing is people's number one biggest expense. So if you can kind of get your housing costs kind of organized, then the other cost of living things, we don't vary too much from other places as far as that goes. But like I tell people all the time, whether it's you're new and it's weather, does it snow? Like there's so many different topics that we've tried to do videos on. I guess it's kind of a case by case, depending on the person, what they're kind of looking for.
Yeah. And that can be a little bit the difficult part of trying to educate buyers with everybody having a different situation, a different scenario, something different going on in their life. Everybody's moving for a different reason. And we had done a previous video where sometimes people, it's death, divorce, and moving. It's a hard time for them. Right. And, sometimes we get people on their worst day and sometimes we get people on their best day. So trying to figure out people's specific situation is kind of where the path we start to travel down.
Well, and it's always funny because people always want to know, like, what's the best neighborhood? What's the safest neighborhood? What part of town should I be in? And it really is very dependent upon what stage of life you're in, what age you're at, what prices you can afford. And again, for some people, some of the surrounding areas. We also help people buy homes in Fernley, Dayton, Carson, Minden, Gardnerville. None of these places is more than, even Gardnerville and Minden, which is maybe a 45-hour drive from South Reno. From the airport, you're never more than really an hour away. There are other options rather than just in the Reno and Sparks areas. But again, it depends on what their situation's going to be. And I know they always want to ask, what is the real estate market like and how are things moving along there? And again, there's certain information that's national and there's certain information that is local. And so do people really start getting in the weeds with you on this? Or for the most part, are they just sort of trying to get an idea of the lay of the land?
At first, it's just getting a lay of the land. People just want to figure out where they want to end up, what types of houses are in those kind of areas that are speaking to them. And then in terms of getting more detailed than that, sometimes for us, it's even neighborhood specific with how quickly real estate is moving in certain areas. Right. We deal with so many different types of properties that even for us, homes could be moving very well in Reno and you talk to agents in Carson City and they're like, we don't have anything going on, or vice versa. So it kind of is case dependent. And I think too, it's time of year dependent as well. I mean, we're kind of going into a little bit of a not necessarily slower season, but it's wintertime. People want to be home for the holidays. They want to be home because it's cold, and it just gets a little bit slower in the colder months.
Sometimes in the winter is the best time to be helping people buy or sell a house. So if you're thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor. Click the link in the description below to get you a free copy of our buyer's guide that'll get you the information you need to get started on your journey to moving to Northern Nevada. The other thing I want to mention today is let's just get the elephant in the room out there. For those of you that have seen Sydney on our videos, and we've had this happen because most people are watching the videos and I'm in most of the videos. Sydney is our buyer's agent. She's typically the one that's going to take people around and drive them around and do all those things. And sometimes people will ask the question, hey, how old are you? And what people have to understand is this, and it's going to sound kind of funny. The first home inspection Sydney ever went on, she was an infant. I literally got my license, I think it was the month before you were born. And your mother was a real estate agent for 5 years before that. So we've been in the real estate business, our family, for almost 30 years now. I think people hesitate to ask you, but eventually the question does come up. And I think they're really actually quite surprised. Why don't you tell people how old you actually are?
Well, the day this video is being recorded, I am 23 years old.
And so at first, has that like made some people nervous?
Absolutely. All the time. And more often than not, they give you that concern and they get in the car with me and very politely, like they don't really say much. And then as time goes on and we progress into our time together, they're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't quite what I thought it was going to be, and typically in a positive direction.
How do you tell them not to be concerned about that stuff? Because it's like you've been doing this for a little over a year. We joke that you have been doing this in some ways a lot more than a year, because I tell people their experience is based on how many transactions and people they get involved with and not. I've had a license for 20 years, right? Because some people don't sell very many homes even though they've had a license a long time. How do you set people at ease, make them feel comfortable saying, hey, I realize I may look young, I may be young, but I really do know what I'm doing. And when I don't, I have help behind me. So how do you tell people about this?
More often than not, it's having the team. I have lovely, lovely people on my team that have been doing this for a very long time. They have been through all kinds of real estate markets, crashes, bad situations. I mean, you did short sales.
Yeah, we've done it all at this point.
You guys have done so much in our area, not just real estate in general. And that typically will put people at ease. And also that I'm not going to put you in a situation that is going to be a detriment to you. That is not what I'm in this industry for. And I take customer service very seriously. And I want people to be in a good spot. I want them to be happy. I want them to not be in some kind of financial hole or anything like that. I do a lot of research independent of just normal day-to-day operation to make sure that the information you're getting is accurate. When we get into a real estate transaction, any negotiations and things like that, that potentially I haven't experienced yet, I come and talk to my team and say, hey, what is best practice when it comes to this certain situation?
So people need to understand that we are a team. It's a relatively small team. There's 4 of us. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. We've sold a couple of thousand homes. Luckily for me, my assistant, Robin, who you guys will never see on these videos, she's been with me for 22 years. And our property manager, Kylie, because we do manage rental property. So if you're someone thinking about buying investment property here in Northern Nevada, we do that as well. And she's been selling and doing real estate for 20 plus years as well. Even though I'm the old guy on the team and I'll be 54 here shortly, she is more than well-versed at doing this, and she's never going to get in a situation where you have to feel uncomfortable. And I know everyone who started off a little like worried ended up being your biggest fans. And it's funny because anymore, they don't even want to talk to me anymore. They want to talk to Sydney. So that part's working out well. So today's video is all about getting you that information on that initial, do I want to come here? If you're someone that is more like detail oriented and want to see what sample contracts are and how things actually work in a transaction here, we do those a little bit differently, and we are more than happy to get you whatever information you need, whether it's regarding our paperwork, what inspections are customary here, like all the details that people eventually want to know on how that works. But if you watch these videos, typically you either have never been here or you're just thinking about moving here. We want you to get the big picture stuff out of the way first. So in that way, if you really do raise your hand and say, I think this is the place for me, then we can get more into the weeds about your specific situation and get you all the information you need. So anything else that you think people, big questions that come up, things that people might want to know before we move them along to another video?
I think a good thing and a good starting place is our buyer's guide. I handmade our buyer's guide. I had Brian vet it, check it. My assistant was part of it. We all looked over this buyer's guide because it gives you an outline of kind of what the process looks like, at least in our state. Because I know for some people, they're not used to title and escrow work. And we have a whole nother kind of process with all of that as well. So I think that's a good starting point, watching the videos, staying in tune with the channel, and just kind of staying here because we put out quite a bit of content. We're always thinking of new ideas, new questions, and the best way to get people information. information.
And you can always reach out to us. I always find it very fun when people have watched all the videos and then they get to meet us in person and they're always surprised. Like, I'm just like the guy in the videos. I don't do anything a whole lot different. We don't script these overly. We just want to make sure you're getting the information that you need in order to make good quality real estate decisions. We'll put a link in the description about the buyer's guide so they can get that information. You can always find it on our website. We are super easy to find. If you just type in my last name, Lessinger, or our last name, Lessinger, you'll easily find us. We have a great website. You can search for homes for there. You can get all the information you need right from that website. So appreciate you watching today. Any final words for everyone?
No.
Thanks for watching. And again, reach out to us anytime. We'll get you all the information you need to know about moving to and living in Northern Nevada. If you're looking for more information about living in Northern Nevada, check out this video we did about all things cost of living to help you understand what you might expect moving here.